Hello, Planeswalkers! Tyler here, and today I'm bringing you a deck tech for one of my personal favorite decks, Mono Blue Deep Sea, aka Thassa's Cracking Open a Cold One. Led by Thassa, Deep Dwelling, the deck focuses on one thing and one thing only: crush your opponents beneath the weight of the sea and all of her bounty. We'll be taking apart the deck bit by bit and going over the various cards the deck runs, so strap in, put on your goggles, and hold your breath as we dive into the unknown and see what Thassa has in store. As with any good commander deck, let's start with, well, the commander herself. Thassa Deep Dwelling is a 6/5 legendary enchantment creature god for 3 and a blue. She's indestructible, and if your devotion to blue is less than 5, she's not even a creature. At the beginning of your end step, you may exile up to one other target creature you control and then immediately bring it back to the battlefield. We have a handful of creatures that this can really help, but we'll get to them later. Lastly, for 3 and a blue, Thassa can tap down another target creature, which can help us with a few strategies, either by stopping an opponent's most powerful attacker, getting a blocker out of the way, or by making certain that a creature of ours is unblockable, but again, that's for later. Our first category of fish, the small fry, are our first line of defense, a handful of low drop ocean dwellers that can help us hold the line for a bit of value. We have moat piranhas, hammerhead shark, coral eel, man-o-war, and surge mare. Additionally, we've got sigilled starfish and reef worm, who's capable of first turning himself into a 3/3 fish, and then later into a 6/6 whale, and finally a 9/9 kraken. Our next batch, the catch of the day, are our more medium-bodied creatures that give a much bigger threat. We've got 3 different squid, all for 3 and a blue, in the Gulf Squid, Sand Squid, and Oneirophage. We've got the Killer Whale, who can give himself flying for a turn, the Serpent of Endless Seas, whose power and toughness are equal to the number of islands that we control, however he can only attack if the defending player controls an island, and we have the Mesmerizing Benthid, who enters the battlefield with 2 O2 illusions who stop anything that they block from untapping for a turn. On top of that, the Benthid's also got hexproof so long as we control an illusion. He works really well with Thassa's flash ability because every time he leaves and enters, he brings 2 more illusions with him who are constantly going to be either stopping our opponents from attacking us or keeping their stuff tapped down if they decide to. Lastly, we've got the Octoprophet, who scries 2 when he enters the battlefield, Giant Octopus, Homerid Warrior, Nadir Kraken, who makes 1/1 tentacles and makes himself bigger if we pay 1 whenever we draw a card, and the Breaching Hippocamp, who has flash and can untap another creature when it enters the battlefield, giving us another blocker if we swung last turn with one of our big beefy fish. But see, those aren't who we're here for. We're here for these, the big boys, the creatures that end games and give the deck its name. These are our titled Menaces and are our primary win cons. Slyn Voda, the Rising Deep, is an 8/8 that bounces creatures that aren't a merfolk, kraken, leviathan, octopus, or serpent if we kick him. Luckily, most of our creatures fall into that category. Breaching Leviathan is a 9/9 that taps all non-blue creatures for a turn if it was cast from the hand. Stormtide Leviathan's an 8/8 with Island Walk that turns all lands into islands in addition to their normal types, which helps with a few of our other creatures, as well as stops everything without flying or Island Walk from attacking. The Inkwell Leviathan is a 7/11 with Shroud, Island Walk, and Trample. Deep Sea Kraken's a 6/6 that can't be blocked, can be suspended, and remove its own time counters if an opponent casts spells while it's suspended. Kraken of the Straits is a 6/6 that's harder to block the more islands that we have. Tromokratus is an 8/8 with hexproof unless it's attacking or blocking, and is unblockable unless every single creature the defending player controls blocks him. Storm Surge Kraken has hexproof and becomes a 7/7 who draws you 2 cards when it becomes blocked if we control our commander. Shipbreaker Kraken is a 6/6 that taps down 4 creatures indefinitely when it becomes monstrous. Tidal Kraken is just an unblockable 6/6. Scourge of Fleets is a 6/6 that bounces all of our opponent's creatures with toughness equal or less than our island count when it enters the battlefield. Again, a lot of fun with Thassa. Fleet Swallower is a 6/6 that exiles the top half of a player's library when it attacks. Lorthos the Tidemaker is an 8/8 that can tap down 8 things if you pay 8 on attack. Elder Deep Fiend has flash and can emerge and taps down 4 things when it's cast. Godhunter Octopus is a 5/5 that can't attack unless defending player controls an enchantment or an enchanted permanent, which both in Commander isn't going to be that hard of a thing, but if we need to, we can force it with some cards we'll mention later. Sealock Monster is a 5/5 that can only attack a player with an island, but who turns a land into an island when it becomes monstrous. Colossal Whale is a 5/5 with Island Walk who exiles a creature upon attacking and doesn't release it until it leaves the battlefield. And finally, we've got Nezahal, Primal Tide, a 7/7 who can't be countered, removes your hand size limit, draws you a card whenever an opponent casts a non-creature spell, and who can exile himself until the end of turn by pitching 3 cards. Boy, that was a mouthful. But hey, the sea's full of monsters and mysteries, so here we are. Our last handful of creatures are here to support those big monsters while still holding up our ocean theme. Deep Channel Mentor makes it so our blue creatures are unblockable. Wonder is here to give all of our creatures flying so long as we have an island and wonders in the graveyard. And finally Caliphie, who's here to offer protection to our creatures and enchantments with a small taxation effect. Our next category of cards are our Sunken Treasures, the artifacts that keep our deck going. Sky Diamond is a rock that taps for a blue. Worn Power Stone and Soul Ring each tap for 2 to help us pay for our massive beasties. Bident of Thassa draws us cards when our opponents connect and can force our opponents to attack. Kefnet's Monument cheapens our creature spells and taps creatures down for a turn whenever we cast said creatures. And Quicksilver Fountain can turn lands into islands to turn on our Island Walk and creatures that need islands to attack. Fantastic cup, but 7 out of 10, too much water, don't drink too deeply. We've only got 2 more categories left before we reach our land base, and I must say I'm rather proud of them. All of our sorceries, enchantments, and instants continue to hold up our watery theme. Let's take a look at them. This first batch supports our creatures. Kiora Best the Sea God creates a Kraken, taps down an opponent's board, and then steals a permanent all over the course of 3 turns. Quest for Ula's Temple lets us pseudo-scry for creatures until it eventually lets us start putting our Krakens, Leviathans, Octopuses, and Serpents onto the battlefield for free. Whelming Wave bounces all creatures except for those 4 previously mentioned types. Crush of Tentacles bounces all non-land permanents and leaves behind an 8/8 Octopus for us if we pay the surge cost. Finally, Octopus Umbra is a totem armor enchantment that turns a creature into a beast with base power and toughness 8/8 who can tap down a creature with power 8 or less upon attack. Why unleash the Kraken when you can become the Kraken? And finally, our last set of cards is here to help us deal with the board to make things safer for our ocean dwellers. Griptide and Engulf the Shore can bounce creatures to the top of the deck or hand respectively. Thassa's Intervention, Thassa's Rebuff, and Spell Swindle are our sea-themed counterspell suite, though the Intervention can also help you dig through your deck if you prefer. Lingering Mirage, Spreading Seas, and Sea's Claim all turn lands into islands, turning off abilities and turning on some of our creatures. Tightening Coils can turn off threats. Capsize can bounce permanents repeatedly if we buy it back. River's Rebuke is an overloaded Cyclonic Rift for a single player. Opt helps us dig, and the art that I use has a pirate on it so the flavor is sound. And finally, High Tide helps us ramp into our big creatures. Now all we have left is the mana base. Coral Atoll is a bounce land that fits with our theme and taps for 2. Saprazan Scary is a depletion land that can get us some extra mana. Reliquary Tower can help us hold on to the flood of cards that we draw. See what I did there? Mystic Sanctuary can retrieve one of our instants and sorceries. Halimar Depths lets us see 3 cards deep. Desert of the Mindful can be cycled if we need a card rather than a land. And Evolving Wilds helps us with some marginal deck thinning. Top it off with 28 islands and we are good to go. And there we have it! A mono blue deck that plays like a mono green one. Unleash the power of the deep upon your foes with this incredibly fun deck. But that's all the time we have for today. So remember, like, comment, toss a sub our way, and be sure to ring that little bell so that you never miss an upload. Later, Planeswalkers.